Hi, it's Dan Eisner here of Key Insight Coaching. And again, I'm back with the 7 gateways to unlocking your inner peace and potential. And today we're talking about gateway number 2, acceptance and the power of now. I like to call this the simple but elusive truth. You know, we all know the saying, it is what it is. It might be one of the most common sayings in the world, but what a lot of us don't recognize is when we very often don't like what it is, and so we unconsciously push against it. And we're really kind of conditioned to believe if we just push hard enough, it'll go away. Well, one of my favorite Eckhart Tolle quotes is, what could be more insane than resisting what already is? Yet this is something that we do all the time. Take traffic, for example. How often are we stuck in traffic or we've been cut off by somebody, and rather than just going, okay, well, that just happened, we instead have a reaction like this. And we were all guilty of this. It's already happened. We're already upset about it, but now we're reacting like this and making the situation a lot worse. You know, and I'll ask you, when we do this, is it really any different than something like this? Is it any different than a toddler screaming because he's not getting his way? Really, it's not. It might seem different because, you know, we're in adult bodies, but really it's the same exact mechanism. There's no thought, there's no logic about it. We're just screaming because we're not getting what we want. Well, in this type of situation, what is it really about? You know, we think it's about the traffic, but it's not. It's not about maybe we're upset because we're going to be late to where we're going. It's not about that. It's not about, oh, I should have gone the other way. It's not about that. It's not even about the driver who might have cut us off. It's not about the stress we're experiencing at work. It's not about a relationship stress that we might have. And it's not even about whatever other crazy story we might make up in our minds. You know, I like to make things very simple. And when we're in a state like this, it's simply about the fact that we're feeling some chemical, we don't like it, and we're kicking and screaming because we think that's going to make it go away, but it has the exact opposite effect where it clouds our ability to actually use our rational mind at all. This is something that happens so naturally in our culture. Again, we don't even consider it to be abnormal. And really what we're doing, well, why does this happen? Well, if you watch the last video, it's simply because our silly little ego believes that if I just scream loud enough, I'll get my way. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. And again, that's why I call it silly, because we know there's no logic to it. And if we're taking it seriously, that just, again, adds to, fuel to the fire. And really what the little ego believes is that there's some salvation in the future. There's some light at the end of the tunnel. When I get out of the traffic, then I can be at peace. When I have, the work project is done, then I can be at peace. When I resolve this conflict, then I can be at peace. Well, really when we do this, we're really chasing what doesn't exist. We're chasing salvation in the future, just like a little dog who's trying to catch that laser light. It's not something that exists. And I'm not saying that, there aren't things that we can look forward to. But what I'm saying is if we're counting on the future to offer us something that's not here now, well, it's really a never-ending wild goose chase, because we're always, even when we get that thing, even when we're out of the traffic, well, it's not going to be too long before there's something else that we're going to be racing towards in the future. And really, when we're doing this, when we're unconsciously resisting what's happening in any given moment, the end result of that is emotional baggage. And we've all heard of, emotional baggage before, but really what it is, anytime we have any emotional experience, meaning there's chemicals that are floating around our brain, our body, well, if we don't take the time to really understand and recognize and own what those chemicals are, they might leave the forefront of our brain. We might distract ourselves by, thinking about something else. We might, push it away by using alcohol or a drug or shopping or whatever. We might get it out of our system, but what they now know is that it literally gets trapped in our bodies. And one of my favorite movies is, the old movie Good Will Hunting. And I'm bringing this up now because there was a scene that I've seen written about in a couple different books very much related to this. And if you haven't seen the movie, there's a scene, or if you have seen the movie, there's a scene where Robin Williams is, he's counseling Matt Damon, and there's a scene where they kind of get to the root cause of his trauma. It's, towards the end of the movie, and it was about him being, abused as an orphan, and Matt Damon is crying, and Robin Williams' character is hugging him, and he's saying, it's not your fault, it's not your fault. Well, in two different books related to this, what they wrote about is that when his character has that experience, there's a release of chemicals at a cellular level that literally enables Matt Damon he literally becomes a different person as a result of releasing those stress chemicals. Well, we're so busy resisting by thinking all the time and by doing things to just kind of distract ourselves from what we've been burying, that this isn't something that happens so much of the time. But it's really worth it to really start practicing again what I like to call acceptance and the power of now, so we can stop collecting more stuff, stop stuffing it, and then really start once and for all dealing with whatever we've been blocking out for so long. Well, how do you get started with this? Well, the first step is, again, acceptance. And that starts with forgetting about whatever the situation is. Because again, it's not about the traffic, it's not about work, it's really about what feelings, what chemicals am I experiencing right now? And really getting into the physical sensations of that. And then with that is understanding that we can never find true salvation in the future. It's never going to happen in the future. As Eckhart Tolle teaches, there is no past and there is no future. There's only right now. And as long as we're, again, looking for something else down the road to make us feel better, again, it's a never-ending wild goose chase. Well, if you've been listening to me or reading my newsletters for any time, you know that I love knowledge, because I believe that knowledge is really the precursor to new experience. And one of my favorite books when it comes to acceptance is, forgot one little section here. A lot of times when people, think, when talking about acceptance, we think that, it's some passive thing. That's not what it's really about at all. When we talk about acceptance, what I'm suggesting is that if we accept whatever chemicals, whatever emotions we are feeling in any given moment, and we make it a habit to process those and be with those, then those chemicals clear and we can take the right action or productive action that is going to improve the situation that we think is really causing the upset. So acceptance is not a passive thing. It's precisely the opposite. About accepting whatever we are feeling so that we can be really conscious and present, and then we can take action. Now, back to what I was saying before, I love resources, and one of my favorite resources on acceptance is called Radical Acceptance. This is by Tara Brach. Well, what is radical acceptance? There's two components to radical acceptance. The first is mindfulness. So we have to be mindful. If we're not paying attention to our thoughts, well, then we can really kind of be ignorant. But if we're too mindful, then we can get really analytical and we can sort of drive ourselves sort of crazy over analyzing. So being mindful isn't enough. The second component to radical acceptance is compassion. Now, if we don't have any compassion, well, then we're blaming ourselves or we're blaming other people. But if we have too much compassion, well, then we can get into this, oh, poor me or poor this other person. So it's really a balance of the two. So as an example, if I am not practicing radical acceptance and I make a mistake of some kind, this is what it sounds like, and this is what it feels like internally or externally. Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe what I just did. It was so stupid. So you can see, I'm mindful there. I know I made a mistake, but there's absolutely no compassion. And I'm really resisting the fact that, whatever I'm feeling about it, and I'm really beating myself up and I'm creating more and more chemicals of stress. Okay, I'm not in the present moment. I'm actually resisting. Now, if I'm practicing radical acceptance and I make a mistake, it's more like this. Oh, man. Oh, I can't believe I just did that. Oh, now I'm not happy with myself, and now I'm feeling all this junk, and man, but I didn't mean to do it, and so I'm gonna have to pay the consequences of this, but I'm going to learn from this, and next time I'm going to do something different. Now you can see that when feel hopefully, when I'm practicing radical acceptance, I'm not sugarcoating anything. I'm not trying to pretend I'm feeling great when I'm not. I'm not trying to skip over any feelings. But what I'm not doing is beating myself up. In other words, I'm staying conscious, I'm staying present with whatever I'm feeling, and that's what makes it pass a lot quicker. So that's really the basis of radical acceptance. But radical acceptance also goes beautifully hand in hand with one of my favorite books of all time, which is The Power of Now. Now, there's a tremendous amount of incredibly practical, wise teachings from The Power of Now, but one of my favorite things that Eckhart Tolle, well, there's two that I've learned from Eckhart Tolle, is the first one is to stay focused on what is the fact versus what is the story. What happens so easily is we get so caught up in the story, and that's what creates all the trouble. So as an example, back to our traffic example, if I'm stuck in traffic or somebody cut me off, the fact is somebody just cut me off. That's it. It really ends there. The story is, oh my God, that guy is a jerk, or I can't believe I'm angry, and why do I keep doing this? And I can't believe I've been learning this stuff, and now I'm still getting angry. I don't like. All of that stuff is story. The fact is, I was just cut off. The fact is, I'm stuck in traffic. The fact may be I'm feeling negative emotion. But even that is just a fact. But even that, again, by not paying attention, we can get caught up in the story and start making a story about what we're feeling. And that, again, is an unconscious way of resisting what's there, and it just creates more and more trouble. So the other thing that Eckhart talks about that fits in very well with acceptance is, focusing on what he calls the inner body, meaning feeling our feelings, getting into the sensations of what we're feeling instead of labeling everything. I'm insecure, there's my anxiety, there's my anger, and those kind of things. Now, I'm not saying there's never a call to sort of recognize and know what we're feeling, but when we get too caught up in labeling things, that's a subtle, kind of silly little ego trick that can sometimes really add fuel to the fire. So this is the basis for radical acceptance and the power of now. Well, again, on the surface, it's very simple, but what makes it very difficult is that we as human beings have what the Buddhists like to call the monkey mind. Okay, our minds jump around all over the place. It's compulsive thinking, I believe, is probably the most popular addiction in the world. We don't really think of it as an addiction because it's so natural and it's what most of us do. But really, when we're doing that, again, we're really unconsciously resisting being in the present moment, which is the only place where we can find that true salvation. But when we make practicing presence a priority, every time we do that, we will literally it always leads to immediate results when we're truly practicing being present. We're always going to feel better. Now, when we've been used to, running from the past, it's not that easy to stay there a lot of times. And we might experience a couple moments here, a couple moments there, but then our silly little ego is kind of back intact, trying to take us away from that. But the more that we practice, the more that we make acceptance and the power of now a priority in our life, we really build what I've learned is presence time until we get to the point where it really, becomes more natural to be in the present moment than not. And the more we do it, the more we see how really silly it is to do anything but that. So this was the second gateway of the 7 gateways to unlocking your inner peace and potential. I hope you found great value in it. Next week, I'll be creating the third video, which is taking care of your well-being. It's all about energy. In the meantime, as you're waiting for that, I'd love to hear your questions and your feedback. And I think you can email me at daneisner33@gmail.com. And I look forward to those questions and comments for you. And I thank you very much for tuning in. Bye for now.